Did Tiny Harris just get arrested in court after a shocking lie was caught on tape? What started as a woman's fight for truth has now turned into one of the biggest celebrity scandals Atlanta has ever seen. Cameras were rolling, reporters were screaming, and in a single, breathtaking moment, Tiny, the woman who once ruled the headlines for her power and poise, was led away in handcuffs. The courtroom gasped when the new recording played. A voice, her voice, confessing to faking evidence, manipulating the world, and destroying lives. But here's the twist. What if that voice wasn't hers? What if the same system she used to expose others has now turned against her? Because in the city of fame, truth is never black and white. It's edited, twisted, and sold for clicks. Tonight we dive into the story behind the arrest, the betrayal behind the tape, and the lie that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Tiny T and the empire they built together. Buckle up, because this isn't just another scandal. This is Tiny, the fall of a queen. When the story first broke, no one could believe it. The woman who once ruled Atlanta's celebrity scene, the queen of quiet storms and subtle power moves, was now standing in a courtroom, trembling under the fluorescent lights. Tiny Harris, once celebrated for her grace and strength, was no longer a headline for success. She was the headline for scandal. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted her name, and in the first time in years, she didn't smile for the lenses. The same world that had once crowned her queen was now watching her fall, and they loved every second of it. The whispers had started days earlier. Tiny's been caught. They've got proof. It's all on tape. Nobody knew what kind of tape it was until the court session began that morning. The air inside was thick. Lawyers whispering, fans outside chanting, journalists live tweeting every second. And then, the screen flickered. The judge ordered silence. The tape began to play. A voice came through the speakers. Soft, but unmistakable. It was Tiny's voice. Or at least, it sounded like hers. I faked it. I made it all up. I had to destroy him before he destroyed me. Gasps filled the room. The statement echoed like thunder. The voice continued, weaving a confession that painted Tiny not as a victim, but as a mastermind, a woman who faked evidence to ruin her ex-T and betrayed her best friend Shakana, all for revenge. Tiny froze. Her lawyers stood up instantly, shouting objections, claiming it was fake, doctored, manipulated. But the damage was already done. Every camera was pointed at her face. Every tweet had already written the verdict. The woman who once exposed the truth was now accused of living a lie. For years, Tiny had carried herself like a survivor, soft-spoken but unbreakable. The one who fought through betrayal, divorce, heartbreak. She was the face of quiet strength. But that morning, she looked small. Her hands shook as she tried to hold back tears. The judge demanded order, but the noise wouldn't stop. Everyone wanted to see the queen fall, and in a way, she already had. What most people didn't know was that the story behind this new tape went much deeper than anyone imagined. Weeks before the court date, an anonymous email landed in the inbox of a major entertainment network. The message had no name, no signature, just one sentence. If you want the real truth about Tiny, play this in court. Attached was the file that would change everything. Her legal team had tried to stop it, arguing it was inadmissible, unverified, a product of manipulation. But the prosecution insisted it was real, and someone powerful was backing them. Rumors said T's team had been digging up dirt for months, desperate to rebuild his image after Tiny's original exposé ruined his brand. Others believe Shakana, once Tiny's sister-like friend, had turned against her, leaking personal recordings out of spite. Nobody could prove anything. But one thing was clear. Tiny was being cornered. Behind her calm exterior, she was falling apart. Friends said she hadn't slept in days, replaying every interview, every phone call, every secret she had ever whispered. What if someone had been recording her all along? What if the people she trusted most had been setting her up, piece by piece? The pressure was suffocating. Outside the courthouse, protesters carried signs. Some read, "Justice for Tiny." Others screamed, "Lock her up." Social media had already decided who she was. To some, she was still the betrayed woman taking her power back. To others, she was the villain, the manipulator who used the world's sympathy for personal revenge. Every new tweet, every new post, twisted the knife deeper. Inside the courtroom, her lawyer, a tall man with gray hair and a steady voice, begged the judge to verify the authenticity of the tape. "We will prove this is a deepfake. We will show that this is not her voice." But the prosecution was one step ahead. They revealed transcripts, text messages, and a supposed witness who claimed to have overheard Tiny admitting the same thing weeks earlier. The gallery gasped again. Tiny turned pale. She tried to speak, but the judge cut her off. "Mrs. Harris, you will have your time." By lunch break, the news had exploded across every major outlet. Tiny arrested after fake tape confession. Atlanta queen falls from grace. She speaks, I warned her. The headlines were merciless. Everyone wanted their piece of the scandal. Reporters surrounded her car, shouting questions. She couldn't answer. Cameras zoomed in on her trembling hands as she was escorted away. The woman who once controlled her narrative was now a prisoner of someone else's story. And the cruelest part? Nobody knew the full truth. Somewhere in that mess of lies and voices, there was a secret still waiting to surface. A secret that could either free her or destroy her completely. The city buzzed that night like a live wire. Atlanta had seen scandals before. Cheating rumors, leaked videos, celebrity fights. But this was different. This time, the queen had fallen, and the streets were whispering her name like a curse. Outside the courthouse, lights from news vans painted the air blue and white, while fans argued on sidewalks, their voices echoing off the marble walls. "She's innocent," one group yelled. "She's a liar," another screamed. And somewhere in between, the truth got lost, just like it always does when fame turns into bloodsport. Inside her hotel room, Tiny sat alone by the window, staring at the flashing lights below. Her phone buzzed non-stop, missed calls, messages, alerts, but she couldn't bring herself to look. Every notification was another reminder that her life was no longer hers. She poured herself a drink, but even that didn't calm her shaking hands. On the TV, her own face stared back at her. Sources claim Tiny Harris falsified evidence. Experts now confirm the voice matches her previous recordings. She muted the sound, She couldn't listen anymore. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. It was her lawyer, Michael Graves, the only person still standing by her side. He looked exhausted. Tiny loosened, eyes bloodshot. They're pushing for arrest. They've got someone ready to testify tomorrow, a tech expert who says he verified the file. That's impossible. I never said those words. I believe you, but belief won't save you in that courtroom. Proof will. The next morning, the courtroom was colder than before. Reporters lined every seat. Cameras already rolling, waiting for another viral moment. When the witness took the stand, a tall man with thin glasses and a calm voice, the tension in the air could be cut with a knife. Yes, the voice on the tape matches Tiny Harris with 97.8% accuracy. Tiny's lawyer pressed him hard. And who hired you to analyze it? An independent source, anonymous payment through cryptocurrency. The room fell silent. Michael leaned forward. So you don't actually know who paid you? That's correct. The judge frowned. For the first time, a crack appeared in the prosecution's armor. Later that evening, a new twist hit social media before her lawyer even heard about it. A short clip surfaced online. Grainy security footage from a recording studio. It showed a woman sitting in front of a computer, editing an audio file. The caption read, "Guess who's behind Tiny's tape?" The internet exploded. The woman's face wasn't clear, but the silhouette, the curly hair, it looked hauntingly familiar. Within minutes, hashtags like Shakana Exposed and Justice for Tiny were trending. For the first time in weeks, the tide seemed to shift in Tiny's favor. But Tiny didn't celebrate. Something about the video felt too convenient, too perfectly timed. Back in her room, she played the clip over and over. She noticed a reflection in the glass window behind the woman, a tall man wearing a hat, face half hidden in shadow. She paused, zoomed in, squinted. It looked like T.I. Her heartbeat quickened. Could it be him? Was this his plan all along? To destroy her? To reclaim his reputation? To make her the villain of her own story? It was too much to process. She slammed her laptop shut and buried her face in her hands. By the third day, the court issued an arrest order, pending further investigation. The bailiffs moved in. Tiny didn't fight. She just closed her eyes as the metal cuffs clicked shut around her wrists. The sound echoed louder than the camera shutters. Outside, reporters shouted questions she couldn't answer. Inside, Michael's voice was drowned by chaos. The Queen of Atlanta, the woman who once held an empire together, was now being led away like a criminal. The cell was colder than she expected. A single flickering light hummed overhead, while Tiny sat on the narrow bed, staring at the gray wall. The silence was heavy, pressing against her ears like punishment. She kept replaying those 7 words in her head. You were never supposed to find out. Hours passed before a guard slid an envelope through the bars. No name, no seal, just a flash drive taped inside. Tiny's hands trembled as she picked it up. She knew she shouldn't plug it in, but curiosity burned through her fear. When the guards changed shifts, she slipped it to her lawyer during visitation. The next morning, Michael connected it to his tablet. Within seconds, a series of files appeared, labeled with dates, phone numbers, and secret recordings. The first clip played automatically. Are you sure this will work? It has to. Once she's out of the way, the label will be ours again. Tiny's stomach twisted. The people she had loved the most, Her husband and her best friend were the ones who'd built her downfall. The betrayal was too sharp to cry over. She just sat still, breathing slowly, like someone trying to survive underwater. That night, while she lay awake, a soft buzz filled the corridor. A guard was scrolling through his phone, whispering to another inmate. "Yo, they just dropped a clip of T and Shaka meeting at the studio. Looks like the same night that tape was edited." Tiny listened carefully, her pulse racing. The world was starting to see what she had known all along. The Empire had eaten itself alive. By sunset, she was released on bail. The crowd outside erupted as she stepped out, wearing a plain gray hoodie and dark glasses. Flashes exploded, but she didn't hide this time. She stood tall, the wind pulling her hair back, and for a moment, the chaos froze. She raised her head slightly, her voice firm but calm. "You can't kill what was born in truth." She walked to the car, and the clip went viral within minutes. However, it started with a file. An anonymous upload. A recording that played in a silent courtroom. Soft, chilling, unmistakable. A voice that sounded exactly like hers. Admitting to faking evidence, to orchestrating lies, to destroying lives, not out of pain, but out of power. "I had to destroy him before he destroyed me." Those words didn't come from a witness. They came from a ghost, a digital phantom of the woman who spent years being called the Queen of Quiet Strength. The courtroom didn't just gasp. It shattered. Her lawyers screamed fraud. The media screamed scandal. And the internet? It made its verdict before the judge even spoke. For years, Tiny Harris was Atlanta's silent force. She didn't tweet. She didn't rage. She smiled through betrayal, stood tall through divorce, and let her dignity do the talking. She became the symbol of the woman who rose not with noise, but with poise. But that morning, under the cold glare of courtroom lights, the mask cracked. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were red. She didn't cry, not then, but the world saw it anyway. The same people who once called her a warrior now watched her crumble like a statue in a storm, and they loved it. Because in fame, downfall is the most viral form of entertainment, and Tiny, she'd become the headline no one could look away from. The tape didn't appear out of nowhere. It was planted. Weeks before the hearing, an email landed in the inbox of a major entertainment network. No sender, no signature, just one line. "If you want the real truth about Tiny, play this in court." Attached, a file that rewrote her entire legacy. Her legal team fought to block it, calling it unverified, manipulated, a digital ghost. But the prosecution refused to back down. Rumors whispered that T.I.'s camp had spent months digging through old recordings, searching for leverage after Tiny's public revelations shattered his brand. Others claimed her closest friend, the woman who stood beside her through every storm, had turned, leaking private moments to burn everything down. No proof, no names, just enough doubt to turn a trial into a spectacle. And behind the polished exterior, Tiny was unraveling. Friends say she hadn't slept in days. She replayed every conversation, every laugh, every "I'm fine," wondering who had been listening all along, who had been recording, who had been waiting. Outside the courthouse, Atlanta split in two. One side held signs that read, "Justice for Tiny." The other screamed, "Lock her up." Social media didn't wait for facts. It created its own truth. To some, she was the woman pushed too far, the quiet soul who finally snapped after years of being silenced. To others, she was the architect of her own downfall, the manipulator who used trauma as a weapon, then got caught in her own trap. No one knew the full story, but everyone had an opinion. And in the age of clicks, opinion became fact before the facts even arrived. Inside the courtroom, her lawyer stood firm. He demanded forensic analysis. He insisted the voice was a deepfake, a digital illusion stitched together to destroy her. But the prosecution didn't just present audio. They presented evidence, text messages, transcripts, a witness who claimed to have heard her say the exact same words weeks earlier. The crowd gasped. Tiny went pale. The judge ordered silence, but the damage was done. By lunchtime, headlines across the country screamed, "Tiny arrested after fake tape confession. Atlanta Queen falls from grace." The woman who once controlled every narrative, every interview, every photo, every public appearance, had become a prisoner of someone else's story. Back in her hotel room, the lights outside still flashed, but they no longer meant fame. They meant punishment. Her phone buzzed endlessly, notifications, calls, alerts, but she didn't answer. She couldn't. Every ping was another reminder that her life was no longer hers. On the muted TV, her own face stared back, calm, composed, the image of strength, while the anchor declared, "Experts confirm the voice matches Tiny Harris with 97.8% accuracy." She turned it off. She couldn't listen to her own destruction. Her lawyer came in, exhausted, quiet. He told her they were moving for arrest. A tech expert would testify tomorrow. She didn't react. She just whispered, "That's impossible." He didn't argue. He just said, "Belief won't save you. Proof will." The next morning, the courtroom felt colder, heavier. The witness took the stand, a man who specialized in voice analysis. He confirmed the recording matched Tiny's voice with near-perfect accuracy. Her lawyer asked who hired him. The answer came slow. Anonymous. Crypto payment. No name, no trail. Just money. And a motive no one could trace. The judge frowned. The prosecution's perfect case? It had a crack. A single, tiny fissure. And in that moment, the entire narrative began to wobble. During a recess, Tiny slipped into a quiet hallway. She pulled out her phone, scrolled, paused, found it. A text from months ago, from the woman who was once her sister. "You think you won, but you have no idea what's coming." No context, no explanation, just a warning or a threat. She stared at it, her breath caught. It wasn't just about the tape anymore. It was about who had known, who had planned, who had waited. That night, a new clip surfaced online. Grainy, unsteady, security footage from a recording studio. A woman sat at a computer, editing audio. Her silhouette was blurred, her face hidden. But her hair, the curl, the way it fell, was unmistakable. The caption? "Guess who's behind Tiny's tape?" The internet exploded. Hashtag Shakina did it trended. Hashtag Justice for Tiny followed. Public opinion shifted. For the first time, people began to wonder, was Tiny the villain or the victim? But Tiny didn't celebrate. She replayed the clip again and again until she saw it. A reflection in the glass behind the woman. A tall figure. A hat. Half his face in shadow. It looked like him. T.I. Was this his plan all along? To let her take the fall while he rebuilt his name from the ashes of her ruin? Her lawyer called again that night. He'd run the metadata on the leaked video. The file had been tampered with, altered, reconstructed. Another fake. Another layer. Someone wasn't just trying to destroy her. They were playing both sides, creating chaos, making sure no one knew what was real. When she asked what they wanted, he didn't answer with words. He answered with silence. And then softly, "To break you completely." 3 days later, the judge issued the order, arrest pending further investigation. The bailiffs moved in. Tiny didn't fight, didn't scream, didn't cry. She just closed her eyes. And when the cuffs clicked shut, cold metal against her skin, the sound echoed louder than any camera shutter. In the van, the world went quiet. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "This isn't how it ends." Her cell was small, cold. The only light flickered above her. The silence pressed against her ears like a weight. She thought of every conversation she'd ever had, every secret she'd ever shared, every smile she'd ever forced. And then her confiscated phone buzzed. One message. No sender. Just 7 words.
"You were never supposed to find out." She stared at them, not in fear, in realization. The scandal, it wasn't the end, it was the beginning. The real war had only just begun. Hours later, a guard slid an envelope through the bars. No name, no return address, just a flash drive taped inside. She knew she shouldn't open it, but curiosity was the last thing they hadn't taken from her. When she slipped it to her lawyer the next day, he plugged it in. Files appeared. Dates, phone numbers, recordings. The first one played automatically. 2 voices, one calm, one cold. "Are you sure this will work?" "It has to. Once she's out of the way, the label will be ours again." The woman's voice? Shekinah. The man's? T.I. The people she trusted most? The people she loved? The ones who swore they'd die for her? They'd built her downfall. And she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, breathing slowly, like someone learning how to survive underwater. By sunset, she was released on bail. The crowd erupted. Flashes exploded. She stepped out, gray hoodie, dark glasses, no smile. But this time, she didn't hide. She stood tall, wind in her hair, and for the first time since the tape played, she spoke. Not to the cameras, not to the reporters, but to the world. You can't kill what was born in truth. The clip went viral within minutes, but she didn't watch. She didn't celebrate. She just walked away. So, what really happened? Was Tiny Harris the victim of the most elaborate setup in modern celebrity history? Or was she the mastermind who played the game too well and lost control when the pieces turned against her? The tapes, the betrayals, the lies, everything points to a truth no one is ready to face. Because in the world of fame, truth isn't something you find. It's something you're given, edited, stitched, sold. Some say this is karma, that after years of silence, the ghosts of her own choices came knocking. Others say she was punished, not for lying, but for daring to speak. But here's what no one wants to admit. This wasn't about justice. It was about power. And in this city, in this industry, power doesn't care who's guilty. It only cares who's vulnerable. The tape was just the first domino. There are still missing files, secret deals, names that haven't been spoken. And somewhere, in a room with no windows, someone is still watching, waiting, preparing the next move. And now, the question that has set the internet on fire. Was Tiny the victim of the most elaborate setup in modern celebrity history? Or was she the mastermind who played the game too well and lost control when the pieces turned against her? The tapes, the betrayals, the lies, everything points to a truth no one is ready to face. Because in the world of fame, justice isn't found in the courtroom. It's found in the headlines. So, what do you think really happened? Was Tiny framed by her own circle, betrayed by the 2 people she trusted most? Or is there a deeper plan? Something darker? Pulling all of them like puppets in a show none of them can escape? Drop your theories in the comments right now. Type #FreeTiny if you believe she's innocent, or #TinyExposed if you think the evidence is real. Smash that like button if you think the story deserves justice. And hit subscribe, because in this city of secrets, the next twist is already loading. Stay tuned, because the real truth is still hidden.